Hey, what's up, you guys? You're watching Team APS, and in today's video, we're going to talk a little bit about the hype surrounding Yu-Gi-Oh! And how a lot of times it falls through. So, let's get started, and then I'm going to ask you guys to check out my channel and subscribe for more Yu-Gi-Oh! Videos. So, we all know Yu-Gi-Oh! Is about, hype. What's coming out, what's going to be big, what's going to dominate the game, what do I need to invest in, what do I need to prepare for? So, oftentimes we can get a little bit overhyped, a little bit overexcited, and it's really annoying because some people are like, oh my god, this thing's gonna be amazing, and it turns out it's not. Or oh my god, this tech is crazy. Well, I'm going to actually give some big examples of hype that completely fell through. And sometimes these are funny examples, other times it's a little bit scary, like what happened to this. My first example is Curry Bandit. There are actually several cards from Dragons of Legend. You can probably guess what they are, but Curry Bandit's the first one. Curry Bandit, when it was announced, was huge, or people thought it would be at least. Oh my god, this card mills 5, and you get a spell or trap, so you can just get your strongest spell and trap in your deck, and then you mill all your cards. Well, actually, when it was released, it was a big deal. It was used in the Dragon Roller deck. It's used in a lot of Dragon and like Dark deck variants, usually. Anything that had to do with the graveyard, but those were kind of the bigger ones. Well, what happened? Where's Curry Bandit now? It was said to be so broken. It was said to be, so crazy, like just, oh my god, this mills so many cards, Lightsworns can use it, Dragons can use it, all this stuff. And funny enough, you don't see it anymore. So what went wrong? Well, people clearly overlooked the fact that you had to normal summon the thing. You had to waste a turn summoning a card that didn't actually progress your board any at all. And, it wasn't part of the archetype you're running, so it can't really combo into any of the things you're using. And so you summon this thing, and it has to, of course, survive. Normally that's not too hard, but it could be, negated, stopped if you try to attack with it, deprisoned, and things like that. And then in the end phase, you had to rely on actually getting a good mill. And if you're milling 5 cards and your deck is catered to a good mill, then that's fine. But what happens when you don't mill a spell or trap? And you're just taking a bit of a neg. Sure, you've got lots of monsters set up, but losing a turn and taking a neg 1 in the pace of today's metagame hurts. Or what happens when, you just mill a bunch of spells and traps and none of the monsters you intended. Also a kind of sticky situation. So the card was a bit slow. It wasn't situational or anything, but it was a bit slow and slightly luck reliant. And so, lo and behold, we don't see it anymore. Next example are the hands, Fire and Ice Hand. Now this is a big one. At first people complained to high heaven about these cards. They're so broken, they're just so annoying, every deck's running them. You can't get around them, they destroy fields, and all of these things felt true at the time. Fire Hand could literally run into your monster, pop it, or another monster usually, and then get Ice Hand, which would run, pop a spell or trap, get Fire Hand again. There was no once per turn clause, or just anytime these things were destroyed. It felt really unfair. And then, suddenly, somehow, in the last several months, they're nowhere to be seen. So what happened exactly? Well, people began to realize that, like a lot of other cards, these cards don't actually advance your game state. So while they might be thinning your deck and sort of getting you a plus, or at least maintaining some field presence, even getting rid of your opponent's field, they aren't part of your archetype. They aren't part of your deck. They don't move your deck's strategy forward. And also, there are outs to them now. Deprison is just one of them, but also, a lot of monsters can't be destroyed nowadays, or would like to be destroyed. Try popping a Dante and see how far you get. So interestingly, the game's pace even has just moved faster, where you don't have time to set these kinds of cards and wait for your opponent to, get these effects, because that's the thing with Fire and Ice Hand. Once you've seen one, your opponent's going to know, like, I need to summon Abyss Dweller, I need to use Black Ship of Corn, I need to just sit and wait until I can establish a board that can reliably get rid of these hands without triggering their effects, or something similar. So you realize that they have the slow floater sort of syndrome, where it looks good on paper, but where did it go? Next one is Wiretap. So when this thing came out, yet another card from Dragons of Legend, it was like, oh my god, it's so broken, like this is a trap and it just negates traps and it's better than 7 tools. And pretty much only like one of those things is really true. It is objectively better than 7 tools. But suddenly it just kind of died off. So what happened with this? Well, traps became less prevalent. It got to a point where, see, there was a time when people thought, oh, I can just run, this really fast, crazy deck and just run triple wiretap and I'll be fine. But then what ends up happening is when everybody has that mentality, you find that your wiretaps are just dead because there aren't any other traps in the format. Also, traps did become less prevalent. People were running less of them, and so your wiretaps actually became easily dead cards, and you would rather have than a wiretap, you'd rather just have something like a compulse, something like a bottomless, a fiendish chain that actually stopped your opponent and wasn't strictly just there to, seal an OTK. Next up, the Supply Squad. So this came out in that starter deck, whichever one it was, I don't know. And it, the continuous spell where you draw a card once per turn, whenever your opponent or whenever your monster gets destroyed. Okay, so seemed great on paper, like, oh my god, I can just draw, and float, and I can run it with the hands, and just pop cards and draw cards. But then you realize that this is yet again another card that doesn't necessarily move your game state forward and is dead in a bad situation. If you top deck this card when you're losing, it's not doing anything. It's easily MST'd. Destruction is not the only thing that happens in this game, not to mention, if you're using these kinds of decks, they're usually pretty slow paced anyway. So if you're having to rely on things like Fire and Ice Hand, other floaters, TGs or something like that, it doesn't necessarily work out. It seems like it would work out, but lo and behold, it doesn't work out. I think it was kind of an interesting thing because when it first came out, I got really annoyed by it. I didn't like the idea of just the free plussing that people could get off of the card. But funny enough, you don't see it played anymore. Next is hand traps, which is a bit of a sticky one because they tend to go more in and out of style. But hand traps, they're recently getting a slight resurgence, but for the longest time, they were just kind of proven irrelevant. It's a shame, but Maxi and Valor just were kind of getting outshined. Valor got outshined by, Breakthrough Skill, Fiendish Chain cards, even Forbidden Chalice, cards that were just more flexible and just got more done in more situations than, Valor did. It can only be used in your opponent's main phase, and all these other cards can be used pretty much any time, or they stop attacks, or get used twice. And so Valor just sort of fell off the wayside. And Maxi, even a card that was pretty good, just suddenly got a little bit less effective. Whether it was the fact that more decks gained the ability to sort of just stop on a dime, or just the fact that you didn't want to have a Maxi be potentially dead, you'd rather have a trap or something that could just stop your opponent's special summons instead. These cards just became less relevant. I mean, other hand traps too, DD Crow is obviously, it left kind of a long time ago. And Gores and Trag, well, we've seen that. But it just feels like hand traps definitely had a complicated fall from grace because they could pop up again at any minute. And we're getting like the Snow Rabbit and the other, whatever they called it, I don't know. Anyway, you guys know what I'm talking about in the new set. So maybe hand traps will be seeing a bit of a resurgence, but these other cards seem to have kind of just gone past their time. And I guess honorable mention goes to like Madolce Angeli, the funniest card to me, because I remember people saying like, oh my god, when Angeli comes out, Madolce's gonna be 2-0. And then Angeli came out and like nothing happened. So anyways, that concludes my sort of rant / discussion on why the hype isn't always worth following and why cards just seem to end up going wherever, whatever happened to these things. So leave examples in the comments. These are more recent ones, but there are loads of older examples of cards that just got decks, that just got hyped up. Mecha Phantom Beasts, Harpies, Scraps, Naturias, like the whole Bamboo Shoot thing. Lots of decks that got hyped up, just didn't work out. So that's the video. Remember to leave those comments, check the description for more important stuff that might be going on, and please subscribe for more Yu-Gi-Oh videos and follow me on social media. That'll be that. Bye guys.